They invited me to my little sister's wedding for one reason only: to humiliate me. They were sure I'd walk in alone, tired, broke, still the same poor single woman they loved to whisper about behind crystal glasses and linen napkins. I could already hear it before I even arrived. That's her. The one who couldn't keep a husband. The one who never gave them a grandchild. Soft laughs, polite smiles, champagne clinking like punctuation marks after every cruel sentence. My sister stood at the center of the ballroom, white gown glowing under chandeliers that cost more than my first apartment. Her lips curved into that same small, satisfied smile she'd worn since we were kids, the one that always meant she was winning. Then the massive double doors at the Conrad Indianapolis swung open. 200 heads snapped toward the entrance at the exact same second, and someone actually gasped, because I didn't walk in alone. But that moment, the one the internet replayed millions of times, wasn't the beginning of my story. It was the ending. So let me take you back to the day my own family threw me out with one suitcase, $5,000, and the unspoken understanding that I was no longer welcome to carry their name. My name is Kendall Pierce. I grew up in a red brick colonial just outside Speedway, Indiana. The kind of house people slowed down to look at. Original hardwood floors from the 1920s. A 3-car garage filled with vintage Corvettes my father collected like trophies. The Pierce family helped pour concrete for half the warehouses near the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. 3 generations back, and they never let anyone forget it. Money was never the issue. Image was. My mother, Patricia Pierce, chaired every charity gala that mattered. She knew which forks to use, which names to drop, and exactly how loud to laugh when donors told bad jokes. My father, Richard Pierce, spoke maybe 50 words a week at home, but when he did, people listened. Silence followed him like gravity. And then there was Reagan, 5 years younger, blonde, loud, effortlessly adored. From the moment she could talk, Reagan was the princess of our house. Whatever Reagan wanted, Reagan got. I learned early that second place didn't exist in my family. You were either impressive or invisible. At 26, I married Alex Carter. He wasn't rich, he wasn't connected, and he definitely wasn't what my mother had imagined for her eldest daughter. But Alex made me laugh in a way no one else ever had. We rented a modest ranch house in Plainfield, 20 minutes west of the city, and started trying for a baby the week after our wedding. 18 months later, Alex kissed me goodbye one Tuesday morning, merged onto I-465, and never came home. A jackknifed semi crossed the median. The police said he died instantly. The funeral was held at Crown Hill Cemetery under a gray January sky. I stood beside the casket in heels that hurt my feet, clutching a single white rose. That was the first time I heard my mother whisper to the cousins behind her, "We can't have a daughter who doesn't give us grandchildren. What will people say?" Reagan stood right there in her designer coat and added, loud enough for half the row to hear, "Guess some people just aren't cut out for the family thing." My father said nothing. He simply placed a hand on my mother's shoulder and guided her back to the limo. 3 months later, Patricia called me into the study. Mahogany paneling, family portraits. My father already seated behind the desk, hands folded like a verdict waiting to be delivered. "We've made a decision," she said smoothly. "This situation is hurting the family's reputation." That was how they framed grief. They gave me $5,000, the SUV, and instructions on how to disappear quietly. No charity events, no country club, no Pierce name attached to anything public. That night, I packed one suitcase, the framed wedding photo I couldn't leave behind, and Alex's ashes. The gates closed behind me with a soft, expensive click. And just like that, I became someone my family used as a cautionary tale. I signed the lease on a one-bedroom unit in the Eastgate neighborhood, 23 miles from the manicured lawns of Speedway, but it felt like a different universe. The building smelled like old grease and cheap pine cleaner. The hallway lights flickered. The carpet had stains no one bothered to explain. My neighbors kept to themselves, not out of rudeness, out of exhaustion. I took every overnight cashier shift the 24-hour Kroger on Shadeland Avenue would give me. Clocked in at 10, clocked out at 7. By the time I walked to my car each morning, my feet ached so badly, it felt like bones grinding against each other. The taste of burnt coffee never quite left my mouth. I learned how to sleep in 3-hour fragments. The $5,000 disappeared faster than I thought possible. First month's rent, security deposit, electricity turn-on fee, a used crib from Facebook Marketplace. After that, I qualified for Section 8 and SNAP. The paperwork felt like punishment. Every form asked the same question in a different way. Marital status, number of dependents, emergency contact. I checked the boxes alone. No one from my family called. No one asked how I was holding up. The only messages I received were forwarded invitations to events I was no longer welcome to attend. One Saturday, mostly because the volunteer coordinator sounded desperate, I signed up to help at the Children's Bureau on North Meridian Street. We were stuffing backpacks for foster kids, cheap notebooks, crayons, a toothbrush sealed in plastic. It felt like something small I could do without needing to explain myself. That's when I met Logan. He was 3, skinny arms, sandy curls, a heart monitor sticker still clinging to his shirt from a recent hospital visit. He handed me a broken blue crayon and looked up like he was waiting for permission to exist. The social worker explained quietly that he'd been surrendered at birth. Congenital heart defect. Required monitoring. Surgery eventually. Private adoptions had fallen through twice. Most families want healthy infants, she said, like it was weather. I kept finding excuses to visit the playroom. Logan called every adult Miss, including me. When I read Goodnight Moon, he leaned into my side like he'd been waiting for someone to stay still long enough. Something inside my chest shifted. 6 months later, after background checks, home visits, CPR classes, and more paperwork than I thought existed in the English language, a judge signed the adoption decree. Logan became my son. Life narrowed to a tight, unforgiving circle. Work, daycare drop-off, pediatric cardiology appointments at Riley Hospital, microwave dinners eaten standing up. The surgery bill loomed like a shadow I couldn't outrun. Logan's defect wasn't immediately life-threatening, but the cardiologist wanted it closed before kindergarten. During one of those pre-op appointments, while Logan played with plastic dinosaurs in the waiting room, I scheduled my own overdue exam at the community clinic next door. I hadn't been since before Alex died. The nurse practitioner pulled up my old fertility records and frowned at the screen. "Everything on your side looks perfect," she said, turning the monitor toward me. "Ovarian reserve normal, tubes clear, hormones textbook." She paused, then scrolled. "The semen analysis from your late husband showed severely low count and poor motility. Honestly, it's a miracle you didn't conceive sooner." The room went quiet. All those years of sideways looks, the whispered blame, my mother's sighs every time a cousin announced a pregnancy. None of it had been my fault. I walked out into the cold February air and cried for the first time in years. Not from grief, but from relief so sharp it almost hurt. Logan tugged my sleeve. "Miss Kendall, are you sad?" I crouched down, wiped my face on my coat sleeve, and hugged him. "No, baby. I'm happy." That night, I splurged on a $10 bottle of cheap sparkling wine from the gas station and toasted the tiny apartment. It didn't feel like a prison anymore. It felt like a beginning. Logan turned 5 the spring everything went wrong again. He'd grown into a wiry kid with endless energy and a laugh that made strangers smile. One Saturday, we walked to the corner market for milk. He darted ahead on his scooter. An older boy on an electric bike blew through the stop sign. I heard the screech before I saw him hit the pavement. Blood soaked through Logan's shirt before I could think. I ran red lights with my hazards on, my son crying in the passenger seat, my hands shaking on the steering wheel. At IU Health University Hospital, they rushed him straight to trauma. The surgeon who met us was calm, green eyes, wire rim glasses. 3 fractured ribs, he said, scanning the X-ray. 1 shard dangerously close to the heart. They took Logan to the OR. 4 hours later, the surgeon came out. "He's stable," he said. "The fragment missed the heart. We repaired it. He's tough." His name was Nathan Reed. Nathan checked on Logan every morning, brought Matchbox cars, brought real coffee for me. When Logan spiked a fever weeks later, I texted Nathan at 2 a.m. He called back in 30 seconds. Then he showed up at my apartment with a stethoscope and groceries. Those visits became part of our rhythm. Saturday breakfasts, farmers markets, quiet evenings where no one expected me to perform. Logan started calling him Nate. Nathan never corrected him. One night, while hanging Christmas lights on our tiny balcony, Nathan asked if he could kiss me. I said yes before my brain caught up. We dated quietly. 10 months later, he proposed on the Monon Trail, with a ring hidden inside a box of my lemon raspberry cupcakes. I cried so hard Logan thought something was wrong. Our wedding was small, 30 people, Logan as ring bearer. For the first time since Alex, I felt safe. And that's when my past decided it was done ignoring me. 8 years of silence ended with my mother's name lighting up my phone. "Kendall, honey," Patricia said sweetly, "your sister is getting married." They wanted me there, not to celebrate, to remind everyone who they thought I still was. I didn't answer my mother right away. I stood in the kitchen long after the call ended, staring at the swirl of vanilla frosting on the cake in front of me, my pulse thudding in my ears. Nathan walked in, read my face before I said a word, and listened without interrupting. "They don't want you back," he said quietly when I finished. "They want the version of you who stayed small." I knew he was right, but I also knew something else. For 8 years, I'd built my life in the margins, quiet, careful, always bracing for the next hit. I had learned how to survive. I had learned how to endure. What I hadn't learned, until that moment, was how to stop apologizing for existing. "I think I have to go," I said finally. Nathan searched my face. "For you?" "For me," I said. not for them. That was the decision. Not revenge, not confrontation, visibility. The bakery had started as a coping mechanism. At 5 a.m, when Logan was still asleep and the world felt manageable, I baked. Muffins, bread, cupcakes, recipes scribbled in a shoebox turned into muscle memory. When the first shop opened in Broad Ripple, I painted the walls myself. Butter yellow, cheap brushes, a borrowed ladder. I paid myself last. By the time the second location opened in Fountain Square, I understood margins, labor costs, supplier contracts, the math of staying open when the romance wears off. By the third shop, I understood leverage. People assume success arrives in a single moment. It doesn't. It arrives in spreadsheets, in missed sleep, in choosing long-term stability over short-term applause. I incorporated properly. LLC first, then S Corp. Clean books, separate accounts, no family money, no favors. When local press started calling, I didn't chase them. I waited. Indianapolis Monthly featured us as a breakout small business. I said yes to interviews that talked about work, not trauma. Nathan never tried to take over. He asked questions. He learned. He trusted me to lead. That mattered more than flowers ever could. The pregnancy test turned positive on a Tuesday morning between proofing dough and school drop-off. Triplets. I laughed until I cried. When they arrived early but strong, something inside me locked into place. I wasn't rebuilding a life anymore. I was anchoring one. That's when the invitation arrived. Thick cardstock, gold foil, Reagan's handwriting looping and theatrical. "We've reserved the best seat in the house for you." I read it twice. Then I turned it over. The date was October 12th, the anniversary of Alex's death. That wasn't an accident. The old family group chat lit up like it had been waiting for blood in the water. Jokes, pity disguised as concern, speculation about my situation. Nathan read it over my shoulder. "They think they're hosting a spectacle," he said. I nodded. "Then we'll give them one." But not the one they expected. The plan didn't start with clothes. It started with logistics. I booked a suite at the Conrad under Reed, not Pierce. Ordered custom suits for the boys. Quiet luxury, not flashy. Midnight blue, tailored, intentional. I chose my dress the way I chose vendors and contracts. Something that didn't scream money. Something that whispered control. The night before the wedding, my mother texted, "Parking downtown can be tricky when you're not used to it anymore." I didn't respond. That was part of the plan, too. The plan wasn't to embarrass them. The plan was to arrive whole. The Conrad Indianapolis Ballroom glowed the way money always does when it's meant to impress. Crystal chandeliers, white orchids spilling from gold vases. 200 guests dressed for photographs, not comfort. The air smelled like perfume, polished wood, and expectation. My mother sat dead center at the head table, in lavender silk flown in from Paris, pearls resting perfectly against her collarbone. Her hand flicked toward the double doors every few seconds, champagne flute always within reach. My father stared into his glass like it held answers he'd missed. Reagan drifted through the room like she owned it. Diamond necklace flashing every time she laughed. Her train followed behind her like an obedient servant. The ceremony had ended. The planner whispered. Guests checked their watches. And still, the doors remained closed. My mother leaned toward the Harrington matriarch and said, just loud enough to travel, "My eldest is running a little late. Life's been complicated for her. Soft laughter rippled outward. Someone murmured, "Single mom, tragic." Another whispered, "I heard she lives off Shadeland." Phones came out. They were ready. Outside, the valet line stretched down Illinois Street. And then, everything stopped. The Rolls-Royce Spectre glided to the curb without a sound. Midnight sapphire paint catching the streetlights like liquid ink. The driver opened the door. I stepped out first. Not rushed, not hesitant. Nathan followed, calm and steady. Then Logan. Then the triplets, matching suits, tiny hands finding each other without being told. For exactly 2 seconds, I paused, long enough for every phone to rise. Then we walked. Inside, the doors opened. 200 conversations died mid-sentence. Champagne glasses froze inches from lips. My mother's flute slipped from her fingers and shattered against the marble. My father's face drained of color. Reagan's bouquet hit the floor with a soft, humiliating thud. I didn't rush. I walked the aisle cleared for the bride. Nathan's hand rested lightly at my back. The boys followed in perfect, unplanned formation. Logan in the middle, already carrying himself like he belonged. I stopped 10 feet from the head table. "Mom?" I said calmly. "Dad?" "Reagan." My voice didn't shake. "You saved us the best seats in the house. How thoughtful." Logan tugged my hand. "Mom, can we sit now? My bow tie's itchy." The word "mom" landed harder than anything I could have said. I didn't wait for permission. We sat. The room never fully recovered. By sunrise, the clips were everywhere. By Monday morning, contracts were quietly withdrawn, invitations rescinded, partnerships reconsidered. I never commented. I didn't need to. 2 weeks later, I incorporated a foundation for single mothers. Quiet launch, real numbers, real help. Within months, families were housed, childcare covered, legal retainers paid. A year later, I stood on a stage and answered the question everyone wanted to hear. What would you say to women whose own families wrote them off? I looked straight into the camera. The people who demand you stay small are afraid of what happens when you don't. Your value was never theirs to measure. Blood may share your DNA, but family is who shows up every single day. The applause lasted longer than I expected. That night, I went home to my husband, my sons, and a life that fit. I never looked back. Family isn't the name you're born with. It's the one you choose, and the one that chooses you back.